2,850 meters, the mountain has stirred the imagination and courage of man for centuries. Hundreds have died trying to climb to its summit, and now a city slicker with a borrowed sleeping bag but a lot of heart is about to attempt to trek to its third base camp. This is the Everest Podcast.
Hello, and welcome to the 24th episode of the Everest Podcast. My name is Erick, and I am your host for the Everest Podcast. I wanted to begin today with some good news and some bad news. First, the good. The good news is that Lhasa was just an unbelievable amount of fun. I really had just an amazing time there, and in my 2.5 days in Lhasa, I was really able to come to a whole new level of appreciation for the Buddhist culture, the Buddhist tradition, and Tibet as a whole. I really can't say enough about just how amazing of a place Tibet is, and how everyone should really try their best to go to Tibet and visit, because there's so much to be learned and so much that you can discover in a country like Tibet, and about yourself as well when you're there. So that was just an amazing place to be. The bad news that I have today is that because I had so much fun in Lhasa, I ended up getting very lazy and not recording any podcast episodes. So I unfortunately don't have any more episodes from the scenes from Lhasa to share with you. So now what? Here's my idea. I've actually set aside a bonus track recording. It's a recording that I made back in the tea tent on the very last day of our Everest trek when we returned to Everest Base Camp. As you may recall from episode 20, when we reached Everest Base Camp and descended back to Everest Base Camp, I had a long conversation with our Tibetan guide about the yak fiasco. And in episode 20, I played a short clip for you just to give you a taste of how that conversation went. Well, the conversation as a whole was actually quite entertaining. At the time, it was a little emotional, but listening to it now, it sounds a little more entertaining than anything. So I thought it would be nice to treat that as kind of a bonus episode for you, and you can take a listen to it. What's also interesting about that recording is that a lot of it is in Tibetan, and I realized that through this podcast you have yet to hear much of the Tibetan language at all, if any. So it'd be nice just to play this recording and give you a sense of what the Tibetan language feels like, and give you yet another way of feeling virtually immersed in Tibet, as if you were almost there. And it helps just to hear the language and hear it spoken by a Tibetan. So what I will do in this episode is play for you that recording from the tea tent in its entirety, and you will get some more insight into the conversation that I had with the Tibetan guide about our yaks and what we should do about that, and whether he should be compensating us for not being able to reach Base Camp 3. And then after this episode, I will have one final episode, just because I would like to hit 25 episodes. That's partly the reason. The other reason is just because I wanted to share some of my parting thoughts as well before signing off on the Everest Podcast. So in the meantime, today I will play for you the recordings from the tea tent, and I hope you enjoy. This recording does deserve a little explanation beforehand. Basically, the conversation begins in Tibetan, and it's actually our Tibetan guide arguing with a Buddhist monk about the yaks. As some of you may remember, the yaks were actually provided to us by the Rongpu Monastery in the Everest Valley. So in fact, the people who are in charge of not only providing the yaks, but then also charging and collecting payments for the yak are Buddhist monks. So while you're listening to this, keep in mind or try to visualize our Tibetan guide getting into a rather heated argument in Tibetan about yaks with a Buddhist monk who is dressed in his full Buddhist monk attire. The bright red robes, the flowing sash. It was just a very surreal experience to see our guide literally yelling at this Buddhist monk about how they had cheated us on our yaks. And just visualize that as you hear this. The other disclaimer, of course, is that this does begin in Tibetan, and if you don't understand Tibetan like me, it will make very little sense to you at first, but then I do promise that the conversation switches into English in a few minutes' time. So here is the conversation from the Everest tea tent.
What are we gonna do? So, we talked. He did not bring up the I have an agreement to spend 6 days over there. So that's their fault. So So shall we talk with the head of the monk? Maybe pay less or what? So I can refer you to you. So it's okay. So anyway, we are already here, already back to here.
Right.
So there's only one solution. So maybe I have to.
How much were the yaks in total?
So I'm paying around 3,000 yen.
3,000 yen. So about a little under 400 US.
Yeah. So maybe I have to give you something back. So that's all I can do here.
Okay.
So he's already you see, I have agreement for 6 days, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but they didn't bring the hay up for the yaks.
Yeah.
So, but it's their fault, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what. I'll leave it up to you to figure out how you talk to the monks in the monastery. I think the only 2 or 3 things that we have are one, we just weren't able to go to Base Camp 3, that's kind of why we were here.
Yeah.
So it's not even it's not a money issue. Part of it is, but a bigger part of it is just it's a big disappointment, right? In the itinerary, in the program, in the experience. So I don't know how to put a money value on that, right? Yeah.
But that means you are. It's actually not a fault of me, and it's a fault of them, right? But if you are going to say it like this, then they will be what we can say very complicated. It's a very difficult to make a decision between us.
Yeah.
So maybe
Yeah, I don't want to.
So I know that you are come here for third base camp. So I had an agreement with the monks here.
Yeah.
So 6 days. So that's what you're gonna do here up there.
Uh-huh.
So right. So I have agreement with them.
Yeah.
So they did not bring the hay enough.
Yeah.
For the yaks.
Yeah.
So what I gonna do? So, you know, that's the. So you have to please try to what we can say, try to have a solution.
Yeah. No.
For me also, right?
All I'm saying.
I need a solution also.
Yeah. All I'm saying is, I'm not trying to put blame yet. I'm just saying from our experience.
Yeah. That's right.
This is the biggest problem,
Yeah.
right? It's not an issue of money.
Yeah.
It's an issue that we put a lot of time and effort into this entire trip.
Yeah. That's right.
To climb to Base Camp 3, and because of a misunderstanding or miscommunication, I don't know what, we are not able to. And as the customer, all I know as our experience is that we're not able to go. Right? So what I think what I will do initially is just leave it up to you, because I can't talk to the monastery, I can't talk to the monks, none of us can. Instead, I'm going to leave it up to you, since you are sort of our tour provider in Tibet, right? And I'll leave it up to you to figure out what you think is right and what you think is fair, right? And then we can start from there, if that sounds right to you. Because honestly, I don't know what our options are. You probably have a better idea of what the options are anyway. And we're not trying to put blame on the monk, on you, or anything. We're just saying we're very disappointed overall, right? So whatever you can do, in trying to help the situation, would be helpful for us. Not to put pressure on you, but I mean that's all that I can do, right? Like, I mean, it's like we can't say we want X number of dollars refund. Like, I can't put Giovanni maybe can, I don't know.
No.
Like, I can't put a money value on, because we can't go to Base Camp 3. I want X number of dollars back, right? I can't do that.
Yeah.
So I'll leave it up to you to start with what you think is right.
So what? Firstly, I think I have to talk with the monk who organizes yak.
Okay.
From the monastery.
Okay.
And of course, I will take him to the monks over there.
Okay.
And we will talk and see what the monk says.
Okay.
And we'll see what the monk says. That has got to be the best line from that entire conversation. So now you have a slightly better idea of what took place on that fateful day in the Everest Valley tea tent. In our next and final episode of the Everest podcast, sadly, I will again share some of my parting thoughts on the trip and on the podcast itself, and sign off for good from the Everest podcast. So thank you again for listening, and I will speak with you guys soon.
For more information on Erick's Everest trek, as well as photos from his trip, please visit his website at www.everestpodcast.com.